fighters' spirits are forged below the never-ending skies.
Hey, Sophie, how about we go hang out at my place?
Oh, no.
Hey, don't you know who I...
Are you okay?
Alright, I see how it is. Fine, we'll go to your place. You wanna check me out from the back? I brought flowers. What if I let my beard grow? Okay, I get it. It's not gonna work out. Oh, so you do like me.
Learn from loss and redouble your efforts.
Maybe Taki's not doing anything this weekend. Yeah, I think Sophie might be sending opponents mixed signals in combat. She's so sweet and kind, but fights so dirty. Greetings all, my name is Kontrol. I'm a professional artist, a huge fan of old Marvel and DC Comics, and a true veteran of NAMCO fighting games. In fact, I don't think it would be overstating things to say the NAMCO fighters are maybe the single biggest factor in my remaining a gaming addict for as long as I have. Allow me to explain. Note, allow me to explain is code for don't skip to the end of the video to see the finished art. I'll know. Now, the one benefit of being an old timer is the honor of seeing gaming history unfold firsthand. So, I was there when Street Fighter II was the biggest thing going in video arcades. Yes, video arcades were an actual thing that existed.
I've seen the pictures.
Yes, the Street Fighter II craze. I was right up in there. I played it in the arcades, I bought the $100 import version and cartridge adapter for my American Super Nintendo so I could play it at home. I even paid to see the Jean-Claude Van Damme live-action movie. Just kidding, no one did that. Now, it's either Street Fighter or Pac-Man, I'm not sure. What is the most imitated game ever? I mean, the Street Fighter formula even showed up in a Star Wars game that no one talks about for good reasons.
Oh, you should make a video on Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters.
Oh, wasn't that dope? But no. And I was leading up to something, Mello.
Please don't say Cosmic Carnage.
I told you to never speak of it! There is no proof that I ever owned a Sega 32X. Now, with 3D polygonal graphics starting to get some traction, it was inevitable that the red-hot fighting game genre would make the jump, and that's where NAMCO comes in.
Don't you mean Sega? I'm pretty sure Virtua Fighter showed up before Tekken.
Yeah, but Tekken was the first 3D fighting game that wasn't crap. Get him! That's right. I found every Virtua Fighter fan still alive, and all 6 of them are here in my living room. One moment, please.
You, missed the spot. I'm gonna miss Tony.
Tekken arrived on home consoles on or very close to the launch of the PlayStation in America. Yes, the original PlayStation, kids. Now, Tekken looks pretty molested by today's standards, but back then, it looked pretty molested. But the sight of a 3D fighting game running at a smooth 60 frames per second was mesmerizing for gamers brought up on sprite-based graphics. Compared to Street Fighter II, a game like Tekken was incredibly fluid in motion, which made up for its hideously constructed low polygon figures and extremely low-res textures. But the key factor that made Tekken so popular was its intuitive gameplay and simple commands. See, inputting devastating special moves with an arcade stick or a controller was fairly easy. So, unlike Street Fighter, which required nimble fingers for the best results, Tekken was primarily about outwitting your opponent. If you were clever, you didn't need to have the hands of a virtuoso musician to win. And let's get something straight, I do not have the hands of a virtuoso musician. And so then, Tekken was the first fighting game where I was able to consistently punish my enemies. And for the record, I'm still playing Tekken. We're up to 7 to this day, probably as you watch this. And by the way, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, will you? NAMCO soon migrated the Tekken formula over to Soul Edge. Soul Edge had plenty of Tekken DNA, but it equipped every character with weapons, and it swapped out the infinite battlefield for a small arena players could be knocked out of. Also featured a vertical versus horizontal attack play mechanic. Soul Edge was beautiful for its time, and probably served as a perfect proof of concept for NAMCO, who dramatically upped the ante for the sequel, Soul Calibur. Soul Calibur began life in the arcades just like Soul Edge, running on roughly the same PlayStation-based hardware. The real magic happened when the game was ported to the mighty Sega Dreamcast. Now, the arrival of the Dreamcast was basically the moment it became clear that the best game developers were beginning to fine-tune the best ways to present polygonal graphics, and now they had the hardware capable of putting it on the screen. My first impression of the Dreamcast was from outside an electronics store window, where a demo of Soul Calibur was running. So imagine the evil queen has forced you to live your entire life wearing a gauze blindfold that hampers your vision. One day the hero removes the gauze, revealing a pristine, colorful summer vista. Do you see it, Mello? This is what the developers were trying to tell us all this time. The Dreamcast and later the PlayStation 2 is the last time we saw really huge graphical leaps between console generations. Subsequent advances in the technology have been mostly about polishing what's there already. So, to put a fine point on it, Soul Calibur on release was the best looking game ever made. Exponentially better looking than Soul Edge and running at twice the frame rate. It also drastically improved the gameplay with full 8-directional movement and some air control to reduce cheap ringouts. It was a brief snapshot in my gaming history where I actually preferred Soul Calibur to Tekken. It didn't last forever, but it was a fine day for that particular series. Now, it's always been a toss-up as to who my favorite Soul Calibur fighter is. Going all the way back to the original Soul Edge, my two most selected fighters was SOPHITIA and Seungmina. Siegfried, Xianghua, Talim were used occasionally, but when victory was a must, I always used Sophie or Mina. SOPHITIA is slightly better at pressing the advantage, but that's not why she got the nod here on Pinup Day. Sophie's short sword and shield are easier to work into a multi-figure composition. Yeah, Seungmina would have been harder to draw. So, like Vader, I chose the quick and easy path. I happen to like quick and easy, although not necessarily in that order. I picked a separate outfit for each figure, but let the record show, Big Sophie is wearing her main outfit from Soul Calibur 4, which, if I'm remembering correctly, was the first Soul Calibur game where I got to slap around the scum and villainy of the web. Good times. They so have it coming. For those of you that haven't subscribed to the channel yet, it is absolutely free of charge for the first 10 years. Comments and suggestions for upcoming videos are highly encouraged. And make sure to share this with your cousin, the one who keeps ringing you out with Mitsurugi spam. They're gonna want to see this. And as for you, well, you rock. But you already knew that. Thanks so much for watching.
Congratulations. Even greater glory awaits you ahead.